Dr. Allen didn't gasp. He didn't slam anything down or call for a nurse. He just stopped. Read the paper in his hand one more time. Then he looked up at me. Earl Roger. And he said nothing for what felt like 4 full seconds. 4 seconds is a long time when a child is asleep in your lap. 4 seconds is an eternity when that child is your granddaughter. Sir, his voice came out carefully, measured. The way you talk to someone when you're not sure how they're going to react. How long has she been drinking this juice? Ruby, 7 years old as of last Friday, the birthday girl I'd let down, was dead asleep against my shoulder. Not napping, not dozing. Out. The kind of sleep that doesn't belong on a Tuesday afternoon at 4 p.m. in a pediatric clinic off Poplar Avenue in East Memphis. I looked at her little face, then back at Dr. Allen. I don't know, I said. That's why we're here. Welcome to Dad's Raw Revenge. Get comfortable. And remember, the people in these stories had every chance to behave themselves. They just chose wrong. Drop a comment, hit that like button, and make sure you're subscribed. Trust me, you're going to love it here. Let me back up. 2 hours. Same day. Ruby's birthday had been the Friday before, October 11th. She turned 7. I missed it, not because I didn't want to be there. Not because I forgot. I'd been flat on my back with a bad knee that whole week. The same knee I'd been arguing with since 2019. And by the time I felt human enough to drive, the party was over, the cake was gone, and my granddaughter had turned 7 without me in the room. That bothered me more than the knee ever did. I kept picturing her at the table, candles lit, looking around for me. So Tuesday, October 14th, around 2:15 in the afternoon, I dressed up, loaded that big purple gift bag into my passenger seat, and drove from my place off Exeter Road in Germantown out to Collierville. The plan was simple. Drop off her gift, take her for ice cream, let her tell me everything about her party that I missed, every detail, every gift, every kid who showed up, and just be present, just be Grandpa. 3 days late. But I was going to make it right. Funny how the most ordinary intentions turn into the most extraordinary days. I arrived and rang the bell. Vanessa answered. Phone in her hand, barely looked up. Hey Vanessa, brought something for the birthday girl. I know I'm a few days late. She's upstairs. She stepped back to let me in, already walking away. I've got a call. I stood in the entryway for a second holding that purple bag, feeling exactly like what I was. A grandfather who'd missed his granddaughter's birthday, showing up 3 days later trying to patch it with a stuffed animal. Real smooth, Earl. I headed upstairs. Ruby's room is the second door on the left. She painted a sign for it herself. Pink letters. Ruby's room. Knock, please. I knocked again. Ruby bug. It's Grandpa. Silence. Then shuffling. Then the door opened and Ruby stood there and I felt something cold move through my chest. She looked wrong. Not sick wrong. Not fever and runny nose wrong. She looked heavy, eyes slow, a little unfocused, like she was looking at me through water. Grandpa, she smiled, but it came out delayed, like a text message that took too long to send. Hey, birthday girl. I kept my voice easy, crouched down to her level. Sorry I missed your party, bug. You still celebrating? Mm-hmm. She leaned against the doorframe. I'm just sleepy. Sleepy. I glanced at my watch. It's 2 in the afternoon. She shrugged. 7-year-old shrug. Adults ask too many questions. I stepped inside and sat on the edge of her bed. Gave her the bag. She opened it slow. Slower than any 7-year-old opens a present, I'll tell you that much. And when she pulled out her gift, the elephant, she smiled. Real this time. Wide and warm and completely her. I'm gonna name her Grace, she said. That's a perfect name. She held Grace up and looked at her for a moment the way kids study things they already love. Then she set her gently on the pillow, right in the center like she'd been saving that spot, and got quiet. That particular quiet kids get when they're working themselves up to something. I waited. She looked up at me, really looked at me, the way she only does when she wants to make sure no one else can hear. And she leaned in close, both small hands on my knee. My heart already knew. My brain just hadn't caught up yet. Grandpa, she whispered, can you ask Mommy to stop putting things in my juice? It makes me feel sleepy and I don't like it. The room didn't spin. My heart didn't explode. I didn't grab her by the shoulders and ask her to say it again. I just nodded. Once. Slow. Like she'd told me the most ordinary thing in the world. Okay, baby. I stood up. held out my hand. Let's go for a little ride. I want you to understand something about me. I am not a dramatic man, but I know when something is wrong the same way I know when an engine is wrong. You don't always hear it. Sometimes you just feel it in the wheel. A vibration, a pull, something that isn't right, and your body knows it before your mind catches up. I walked downstairs. Vanessa was still on her phone, pacing the kitchen, laughing at something. Laughing. I'm going to take Ruby for a little birthday treat, I said. Ice cream. Just us. She waved her hand without turning around. Sure, fine, yeah. She didn't even look up. I buckled Ruby into the passenger seat of my 2009 Ford F-150. Dark blue. She still uses a booster. Told me once it makes her feel like a princess sitting higher up. I started the engine, pulled out of Collierville, doing exactly the speed limit the whole way to Memphis proper. I didn't call Daniel. Not yet. I didn't call the police. Not yet. First, I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. The clinic on Poplar Avenue was the closest pediatric urgent care I trusted. Dr. Allen had seen Ruby twice before. Both ear infections, both times he was straight with me about what was happening and what wasn't. He knew her chart. More importantly, he didn't talk down to people. I walked in, told the front desk it was urgent, and when they called us back, I sat down across from Dr. Allen and told him exactly what Ruby had said, word for word. The whisper, the sleepy eyes, the way she'd moved slow all afternoon like she was underwater. He didn't dismiss me, didn't give me the "oh grandpa's overthinking it" look that I was half expecting. He looked at Ruby, who was sitting on the exam table eating crackers from a paper cup like this, was the most normal Tuesday of her life, and he ordered a full urine panel, talk screen, everything. We'll have something in about 40 minutes, he said. We waited. At the 30-minute mark, Ruby climbed off the table, curled up against my arm in the chair, and fell asleep. Just went out. Like someone turned off a switch. I sat very still, and I stared at the wall, and I thought about Ruby standing in that doorway, slow-eyed, leaning like she needed the doorframe to hold her up. I thought about the fact that I almost didn't come today, that I almost waited until the weekend. What if I'd waited until the weekend? The door opened. Dr. Allen walked back in. He was holding the results sheet. He looked at it, then he looked at me, and he stopped. 4 full seconds. I counted. Then, "Sir, how long has she been drinking this juice?" "What's in it?" I asked. He sat down, turned the paper around so I could read it myself. Diphenhydramine. You might know it better as Benadryl. Children's allergy medicine. Perfectly safe, at the right dose for the right reasons. Though the results showed concentrations, his exact words, consistent with repeated intentional administration over an extended period. Not an accident. Not once. Repeated. Intentional. Extended. I read that line 3 times. Then I folded my hands on my knee and I breathed in through my nose and out through my mouth. "Is her mother home right now?" Dr. Allen asked quietly. "Yes. Mr. Roger, I'm legally required to report." "I know." I met his eyes. "Give me 24 hours, please." He studied me for a long moment. Whatever he saw must have told him something. That I wasn't going to go off half-cocked. That I wasn't going to walk into that house in Collierville and burn it down with my bare hands, even though every single part of me wanted to. "Tomorrow morning," he said finally. 8 a.m. If I haven't heard from you by then, I make the call myself. Understood. We shook hands. I carried Ruby to my truck, buckled her in, started the engine. Grace the elephant was tucked under her arm. The drive back to Germantown took 19 minutes. I know because I counted every one of them. Ruby slept the whole way, mouth slightly open, breathing steady. One small hand wrapped around that stuffed elephant, like even in sleep she knew to hold on to something good. I didn't call anyone. I drove exactly the speed limit, and I let the silence do what silence does best. It organized everything. I thought about the purple bag, the 3 days I'd spent feeling guilty about missing a birthday party, when the whole time, right under my nose, something far worse than a missed birthday had been happening to my granddaughter in that house. I'd spent 33 years rebuilding broken engines. I knew that when the damage runs deep enough, you don't fix it with noise. You fix it with precision. And I was just getting started. The hardest thing about discovering a betrayal isn't the anger. It's the inventory. Going back through every moment you dismissed, every detail you rationalized, every quiet alarm you turned off because you trusted the wrong person. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was falling apart. I want to be clear about that. Earl Roger does not fall apart. I sat in my living room with the lamp on low, a cup of coffee going cold on the side table, and I thought, methodically, the way I used to think through a rebuild. What do I know? What do I need to know? And what's the right sequence to find it out? What I knew. My granddaughter had been drugged, repeatedly, in her own home, by someone who was supposed to protect her. What I didn't know yet, how long, how deep, and most importantly, why. The why was the part that kept me up. If you have been listening for a while, do us one quick favor. Subscribe. A lot of people watch without ever doing it, but it costs you nothing and it means everything to us. Hit the like button while you're at it, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Wednesday, October 15th, 6:47 a.m. I called Daniel, not to tell him everything. Not yet. I needed to hear his voice first. Needed to take his temperature before I handed him something that was going to rearrange his entire life. He picked up on the second ring. Already sounded like he'd been up. Daniel's always been an early riser. Got that from me. Hey, Dad. Everything okay? Everything's fine, son. Hey, how's Ruby been lately? You notice anything different about her? Pause. The kind that means he's actually thinking about it, not just being polite. She's been sleeping a lot, actually. Vanessa said she's probably in a growth spurt. Another pause. Why? Growth spurt. I kept my voice easy. No reason. Just missed her birthday. Been thinking about her. Hey, would it be all right if she came and stayed with me for a week or two? Little grandpa time. I feel bad about missing the party. I could practically hear him smile through the phone. Dad, she would love that. Let me talk to Vanessa. Appreciate it, son. I hung up and sat with that for a minute. Growth spurt. Daniel had looked his daughter in the face. Slow eyes, heavy limbs, sleeping every time, and filed it under growth spurt because his wife told him to. That's not a bad father. That's a blindfolded one. There's a difference. I needed to remember that. By 9 a.m. I had an appointment with a family attorney named James Whitfield, a man I'd been referred to years back during Beverly's estate and never forgotten. Just a man who knew the law and didn't waste words. I walked in and laid everything on his desk. The clinic visit, Dr. Allen's report, the tox screen results I'd photographed with my phone. James put on his reading glasses and didn't say a word for 3 full minutes. Then he looked up. Earl, you understand what this is? I do. Child endangerment, possibly aggravated, depending on duration and intent. He took his glasses off. Who else knows? You, the doctor, me. Daniel, not yet. He nodded slowly. Smart. Before you tell him, you want documentation he can't dismiss. Because when a man hears something like this about his wife, his first instinct is denial. You want the evidence so airtight that denial isn't an option. He was right. He was absolutely right. What do I need? I asked. Medical records in your possession. Pharmacy records if you can trace them. A timeline. And eyes on the house. He slid a card across the desk before I could even ask. Ray Dobbins. Private investigations. Memphis and surrounding areas. He's thorough, James said. And he's quiet. I pocketed the card. One more thing, James said, leaning forward. When Daniel calls you back about Ruby staying, say yes immediately and get her out of that house. Today if possible. Already planned on it. He almost smiled. You've done this before, but I've rebuilt a lot of broken things. Daniel called back at 11:23 a.m. Vanessa's totally fine with it. Said it might be good for Ruby to get some fresh air, change of scenery. He laughed a little. I think she called it a bonding opportunity. Bonding opportunity. She'd handed my granddaughter over without blinking. Didn't ask how long. Didn't ask what we'd be doing. Didn't even get on the phone to say goodbye. Filed that away. I'll pick her up this afternoon, I said. I pulled up to the Collierville house at 2 p.m. sharp. Ruby was standing at the door with a backpack and Grace tucked under her arm. Vanessa was somewhere in the back of the house, didn't come to the door. I buckled Ruby in. She looked better than yesterday. A little brighter, a little more present. One night without the juice, maybe, or maybe just being away from that house already. Are we going on an adventure, Grandpa? She asked. The best one, I said, and I meant it in more ways than she knew. I'm going to tell you about Vanessa now, and I'm going to be fair about it because fair matters even when you're angry, especially when you're angry. She grew up hard. I knew that much from Daniel. Single mother, South Memphis, scraping for everything. She'd made something of herself through sheer force of will. Good job, good address, good image. When she met Daniel, she was 26 and focused and impressive as hell. I liked her at first. I want to be honest about that too. But somewhere along the way, and I didn't see it, none of us did, the life she'd built stopped being something she loved and started being something she maintained. Daniel traveled for work constantly. Ruby was loud and bright and demanding in the way that only truly alive children are. And Vanessa was somewhere in that house feeling like the walls were closing in. I'm not saying that justifies a single thing she did. No. I'm saying I understand the difference between evil and desperate. And I've learned that desperate people do evil things too. What I didn't know yet, what Ray Dobbins was about to show me, was exactly how desperate she'd gotten. Ray called me Thursday evening, October 16th. Mr. Roger, I've got something. You want to meet? How soon can you be at the Perkins on Summer Avenue? 20 minutes. He was there in 18. Stocky guy. Quiet eyes, the kind of man you'd never notice in a crowd, which I imagine is the whole point. He ordered coffee, slid a manila folder across the table. I opened it. Oh, photos. Clean, time-stamped, unambiguous. Vanessa and a man I'd never seen before. Tall, well-dressed. The kind of easy confidence that comes from never having had to work too hard for anything. Hotel receipt from the Westin downtown. A second one from a place in Midtown. Timestamps that lined up, and I checked, believe me, with nights Daniel had been traveling. The man's name, according to Ray's notes, was Brandon Cole. 38. Sales consultant. How long, I asked. Based on what I can confirm. Ray wrapped both hands around his coffee mug. At least 8 months. 8 months. Ruby had just turned 7. I did the math, and I didn't like where it landed. The kid? I said. Ray looked at me steady. There's no indication of that, but the timeline of the drugging, he paused, chose his next words carefully. It appears to coincide with when the relationship became more frequent. She'd needed more time. Ruby was always there, so she'd put her to sleep. I closed the folder. I sat with that for a long time. Ray didn't rush me, didn't say anything, just drank his coffee and let me be a grandfather sitting with something no grandfather should ever have to sit with. She hadn't done it out of cruelty. She'd done it out of convenience. And somehow that was worse. What does Brandon Cole know? I asked finally. Ray set his mug down. That's the thing. He knows about Ruby. He's been told she's a difficult kid. He paused. He's never asked a follow-up question. Coward. 2 of them. 2 adults in that house. 1 by marriage, 1 by choice. And neither one of them had looked at a 7-year-old girl and asked a single question worth asking. And then there was Daniel, my son, working himself to the bone, trusting completely, missing everything. I paid for the coffee, stood up, tucked the folder under my arm. Ray, I said, I'm going to need everything documented. Dates, times, locations, airtight. Already working on it, he said. Good man. I drove home on Summer Avenue with the windows down. October in Memphis has its own smell. Something between cut grass and coming cold. That last breath of warmth before the season turns. Ruby was at my house, asleep in the guest room. The real kind of sleep this time. Natural. Safe. Grace the elephant on the pillow next to her. I stood in the doorway and watched her breathe for a moment. Then I went to the kitchen table and I opened my notebook, the same one I used to use for engine logs, and I started writing, dates, observations, everything Dr. Allen had told me, everything Ray had just handed me. Every piece of it, in order, in my own hand. I called James Whitfield and left a message. We're ready to move. Then I picked up the phone and called my son, not to tell him everything, not tonight, just to say, Daniel, I need you to come home. Daniel showed up Friday evening, October 17th, around 6:30 p.m. He pulled into my driveway in that silver Audi he loves, and walked up to the door looking like a man who thought he'd been called home for dinner. Relaxed, unbothered, jacket over one arm. He had no idea. Ruby was already asleep in the back bedroom. I'd made sure of that. What was about to happen at this table was not for 7-year-old ears. Not tonight. Not ever, if I could help it. I'd cooked pot roast, cornbread, the same meal I made for Daniel every time life handed him something hard. When he failed his junior year exams, when his first business fell apart at 29, he didn't know it was a ritual. I'd never told him, but I'd done it every single time. Some things you do without explanation. You just do them. He came in, hugged me, Looked around. Something smells good. Where's Ruby? Asleep already. She's been doing better. Getting her color back. He smiled. Good. She needed this. He sat down at the table. So what's going on, Dad? You sounded different on the phone. Eat first, I said. He gave me a look. The same look he's been giving me since he was 12. The one that says you're being weird. But he picked up his fork. We ate. I let him finish. I let him have the cornbread and the second helping and the glass of sweet tea. I let him be comfortable one last time before I changed his life. Then I stood up, went to the counter, and I put 3 things on the table in front of him. The medical report, the pharmacy records James had helped me trace, Ray's folder. I sat back down and I didn't say a single word. Let the evidence do the talking, Earl. You taught him that. Daniel looked at me, then at the papers. He picked up the medical report first, slowly, the way you pick something up when you're not sure you want to know what it is. He read it. I watched his face. It didn't explode, didn't crumple. It just went still. The way a pond goes still right before something breaks the surface. He set it down, picked up the pharmacy records, read those too, set them down. Then he opened Ray's folder. The photos were on top. He closed it after the first 2. The kitchen was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming. Then Daniel stood up very slowly, very controlled, and he said, "Excuse me for a minute." And he walked down the hallway to the bathroom and he closed the door. I sat at that table and I waited. Take your time, son. Take all the time you need. He was in there for a long time. Long enough that I refilled my own glass of tea. Long enough that the kitchen clock ticked through 7 full minutes. When he came back, his eyes were red. Voice was steady. He sat down, looked at the folder without touching it. Then he asked, "Does Ruby know what was in the juice?" "No," I said. "She just knows it made her sleepy and she didn't like it." He nodded. Once. Slow. Good. His jaw tightened. "She doesn't need to know more than that yet." And right there, right in that moment, I saw my son clearly. Not the blindfolded husband, not the man who'd filed away his daughter's slow eyes under growth spurt and gone back to his laptop. The father, the real one, underneath all the travel and the busy and the trust he'd extended to the wrong person. He was still in there. He just needed someone to hand him the truth. "How long have you known?" he asked. "Since Tuesday." He looked up. "You've been sitting on this since Tuesday. I needed it airtight before I brought it to you. Didn't want to hand you something you could talk yourself out of." He was quiet for a moment. Then, and I wasn't expecting this, he let out a short, humorless breath that was almost a laugh. "You rebuilt the whole engine before you showed me the damage. Force of habit," I said. He looked at the folder one more time. Then he pushed it to the side and pulled out his phone. "I need James Whitfield's number," he said. "That's my son." Daniel didn't confront Vanessa that night. Or Saturday. He spent the weekend at my house, sleeping in his old room, eating breakfast with Ruby, watching her carry Grace around the kitchen while he drank his coffee. Just watching her. Storing it up. Sunday he drove back to Collierville. Alone. He'd spoken to James twice. Moved money into a separate account Saturday morning. Photographed documents in the home office. Done everything methodically, carefully, without a single unnecessary move. He learned that from somewhere. Monday morning, October 20th. He waited until Ruby was at school. I'd driven her myself, signed her in, made sure she was safe, and then he walked into that kitchen in Collierville and he sat down across from Vanessa at the same table she'd photographed for social media with the caption "Sunday mornings." The one with the good light and the coffee mugs arranged just so. He told me everything that evening, word for word, and I'm going to tell it to you the same way. She was on her laptop when he came in, looked up, smiled. Normal Tuesday morning. He sat down across from her and he slid the medical report across the table. She looked at it, looked at him, and he watched the smile dissolve in real time. She started talking immediately. That was her first mistake. She went straight to explaining instead of asking what he already knew. "Daniel, I can explain. She was having trouble sleeping and I just..." He let the silence sit there for a full 10 seconds. Then he reached into the folder and put the pharmacy records on the table, then the photos. She looked at the photos of herself and Brandon Cole and she went completely still. "I trusted you," Daniel said, his voice never raised. "Not once. With my daughter, with my house, with my name." He stood up. "You used all 3. Daniel, please. Ruby is my daughter too. I love her. I would never." You drugged her, still calm, still steady, for months, so you could have more time with him. He picked up his keys from the counter. Whatever story you need to tell yourself about that, that's yours to carry, not mine. He walked to the door. She said, "Are you going to take her from me?" He stopped, turned around one last time. "You did that," he said, "not me." And he walked out. I want to tell you how it ended, not the dramatic version, the real version. Because real justice doesn't come with a soundtrack. It comes with paperwork and court dates, and a whole lot of waiting. But it comes. Full custody awarded to Daniel. 60 days after he walked out that door, Vanessa's attorney tried to argue stress, mental health, extenuating circumstances. James Whitfield put Dr. Allen on the record, put the talk screen in front of the judge, put the pharmacy records, 7 months of purchases, traced and documented, on the table. The judge didn't need long, supervised visitation only, pending a full CPS investigation. Child endangerment charges filed by the DA. Randon Cole, when investigators contacted him, cooperated immediately and completely, gave them everything, dates, locations, conversations, handed Vanessa over without a second thought to protect himself. The coward served justice one final time. The house in Collierville sold in a divorce settlement that left Vanessa with considerably less than the life she'd curated so carefully. The Instagram page went quiet. The seasonal wreath stopped changing. The stone mailbox belonged to someone else by December. Not with an explosion, not with a scene, with paperwork, the way real things end. If you enjoyed this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories. And as always, thank you for being a part of Dad's Raw Revenge. I will see you on the next one.